Hello. So I chose to talk about the case study in chapter 13. So just a quick little preface. Damien is a fourth grader. He has a specific reading disability and he tested normal for cognitive function. So he's receiving pull-out instruction as well, and his teacher made some small accommodations in his summative assessment, such as help with directions and having the questions read to him, but that was just not accurately showing his knowledge because he can, if he can answer the questions orally just fine, but when it comes to reading and writing them on a summative assessment online, it just wasn't showing that. So she decided to make a change to the format of the summative test. So it's still an accommodation. It is a large accommodation, but it's still considered accommodation because it changed the testing materials to show a valid indication of his understanding. But it still was the same level and covered the same content as the other students, and the scoring was based on the exact same content as the other students. So it is an accommodation for his summative assessment. And then the next question is, it says, why was the coordinator concerned? So I think that the coordinator was concerned originally because it's a really big change and it was the first change that had been made. I think it probably would have been better to start a running record of accommodations that could be made for his summative assessments and see if those help first before going to such a drastic change, such as the whole change of the entire format. So I think it was just concerning at first because it really was a big change. And I think just legally and for the IEP, it would have been better to do a running record of certain changes that she had tried first and then kind of had this as a last result rather than jumping to this in the very beginning. And then next, it says, is Britta's alternative assessment appropriate? So yes, I do think it's appropriate because the goal of assessments is to obtain a fair and accurate indication of student performance, which just because she changed the format, it's still going to be accurate and it still covers the exact same content. So it's definitely appropriate. And Damien's ability does affect his test taking skills, so he definitely did need measures to be taken for him and able to accommodate him appropriately and legally for his IEP. He needed that, so it's definitely appropriate. It is drastic, so I think that that's why it seems like maybe it wouldn't be, but it definitely is. And then it's his she's made a rubric and a scoring to where he would only be scored on his content knowledge and understanding and not anything like his creativity or his drawings or his handwriting or anything like that. It's completely scored based on his understanding, so that is appropriate because that's exactly how all of the other students without disabilities are being scored as well. Another problem with this might be, however, that he is still going to have to take the large summative assessment at the end of the year, the state testing or whatever it is for him. So having this large accommodation throughout the entire year is nice, but then when it comes for him to take the time to do it online and the regular summative assessment, it might set him up for a little bit of confusion and struggle because he's been used to this. So that's why I think, going back to what I had mentioned before, I think it would have been better to try a few smaller things before this drastic measure, but ultimately it is appropriate and it will accurately measure his content knowledge and understanding, and it's going to really help him because he can show what he knows and he's not going to be frustrated like he was on the regular summative assessment. And then also his teacher worked really hard to do this, and I think that that is really important, and that also makes it really appropriate because she did try really hard with this, and I think that she was upset initially because she didn't understand the coordinator's reaction to it as much, but ultimately I think that it works good, and I think it was a really good accommodation to be made for Damien.